Guten Tag, herzlich willkommen, and welcome, I think that's the same thing, to the School of Send Ultimate Red Bull Ring Track Guide. I'm Callan O'Keeffe, founder of School of Send, and in the next however many minutes this video lasts for, we're going to take you through how to master this circuit and everything you need to know, from overtaking, how to master each corner, and equally just the action spots to look out for this weekend at the Formula One Grand Prix. I've driven this circuit myself, I've raced there, and I know how challenging it is to get right on one lap, and also just to race around. It really is a great track for racing, which breeds a lot of overtaking and attacking opportunity. So there's a lot to keep our eyes peeled on, a lot to learn, so let's get into it. So as we arrive into turn 9 and turn 10, they are the first real challenge for a driver to get right. Well, why is that? If you're starting your qualifying lap, you have to get these corners absolutely spot on, and they're really, really difficult. There's going to be a recurring theme throughout this video, and the key thing is talking about elevation change. That's one of the unique challenges of the circuit. It's blind almost everywhere, and as a racing driver, we rely a lot on our visual reference points, your braking points, your turning points, and more importantly, your apex and exit points as well, because they give us some level of consistency at 100 odd miles an hour. And it's really, really difficult here because a lot of the corners are completely blind, or the track falls away from you, goes up, which makes it very difficult to gauge where the car balance is going to be, especially over the course of a race, but also on that one lap in qualifying given the conditions. So the first real challenge, as I said, is turn 9 and 10. And how do we get those correct to start the lap? Well, it's all about using the track first and foremost. Now you can see the car is bouncing over those horrible FIA curves, the sim doing a good job of replicating it, and in real life sometimes they have those orange baguette curves we saw in Paul Ricard that no one really likes because they are car breakers. But we need to use all the track to open up this very tricky turn 10, and you can see the track tightens and falls at the crest, and that is the first real challenge, because as we get here, the car will suck into the compression and really create the feeling of nervousness, bottoming, or stability. You don't know which one you're going to find, so you've got to be ready for all eventualities. Now, starting off the lap, the DRS is open and we arrive in turn 1. Turn 1 is an overtaking opportunity and causes absolute carnage at the start.
But there's contact between Verstappen and Ocon.
Because it tightens up at the apex. But it wouldn't be my prime overtaking opportunity because you run the real risk of a slow exit and being done into turn 2. So you always have that little part in the back of your mind that says force them to defend, compromise their run, and get them into turn 2 if I found myself in a close racing situation here. What about the driving? So as we arrive up, we can see it's the first real elevation change. It's massively uphill, which means you can brake super, super late. And it's really, really important that you focus on that, because at the apex, you find yourself with a big crest round about that yellow sausage curve. And what that means is the car's going to become unstable. And that's right at the point you want to be applying the throttle nice and strongly for a clean exit. So the later you brake, the more you'll rotate the car, the more patient you'll be on throttle, and that will mean less oversteer mid to exit. So we keep the car over to the left-hand side, and then we turn in, aiming for the curb, run that white line, and then squeezing the power in and leaning on that yellow sausage curb on the outside there, so that we can take the lock out of the steering and just let the car settle over the top of that crest. So as we're coming out of turn 1, this is where the first real overtaking opportunity presents itself on the run down to turn 3. Turn 2 is the kink. It's completely flat out in most cars, but yeah, the FIA track guidance says it's turn 2, so it's turn 2. But yeah, you can really overtake inside and outside. There's so many options to drivers, and it has been the scene of a lot of controversy over the years. So one of the challenges that makes it so difficult, it's the fact that you can pass in turn 1, you can pass in turn 3, and you can also pass in turn 4. So to get the move done is very, very tricky. So expect to see cars side by side throughout the entire first half of this lap. Now, what about driving? Well, as you can see, we arrive here and it's completely uphill once again. Very little reference points. We're looking for that Marshall post, that orange fire square just in the distance there. That's round about where our apex point is, but you can't really see it, can you? There's nothing really visually to go off of from the driver. And when you arrive at high speed, you're looking to push the braking as late as you possibly can make it very, very tricky. So expect to see the drivers missing the apex here, especially on Friday, as they push the braking as late as they possibly can. But that would be too simple. What else is the challenge? What else lies for us further around the corner? Well, once again, the corner tightens up. There's that pinch point, which creates a lot of action, a lot of drama, and creates that opportunity to go around the outside, but also makes it very, very difficult. Round about that yellow bollard, it makes traction so hard, and traction is what we're looking for here. You can see the track is just completely off camber, on camber, up, down, and that means when you're applying the throttle coming out of this corner, similar to turn one, you want to focus on getting the steering out, leaning on that yellow curb, but almost like there's an egg underneath the throttle pedal you don't want to break. And that's how you squeeze the car in nice and progressively to keep that weight transfer nice and progressive and not shock the car into oversteer or wheel spin. On the run now down into turn 4, again DRS open. Let's say you try to create the move there, you've gone down the inside, the car sort of hung it. There's another overtaking opportunity here. Here realistically you're looking at only going down the inside to get the move done. We saw with Alex Albon and Lewis Hamilton a few years ago, it can end in disaster when you go around the outside. And the fact that the next corner isn't the opposite, it's not a right into a left, it's just a right-hander into another right-hander, makes it very, very challenging to go around the outside here unless you're super, super confident on the brakes. Again, we're looking for strong, straight, efficient braking with a clean exit. But you can see on the rundown here, there's another unique challenge. It's now downhill rather than uphill, which means we're going to be fighting instability the whole way into the corner. And that requires a completely different driving style. Again, we want a nice strong peak on the brake, but you have to be really progressive with the way you bleed off the brake. Otherwise, the car will just snap away from you, as you want to enter nice and early and smoothly to stop any shock lateral movements in with the car and risk upsetting the car and ruining your exit going down into turn 6. So as I said, we want that nice early progressive smooth entry. We're aiming for the start of the curb and you just want to hook yourself in before opening the steering, using all that road on exit and driving yourself out. Turn 5 isn't really a corner, but again, similar to turn 2, it's completely flat. And now we arrive at turn 6, the first real high-speed challenge. And once again, we can see there is no reference point to show where we're apexing here. So how do you get the maximum out of this corner? Well, as a general rule, I always say it's better to brake smoothly, keep the load transfer nice and smooth, and turn in early. If you turn in too early, you can always turn out of it. If you turn in too late, there's absolutely nothing you can do, and you find yourself sailing away from the apex. So we are aiming to apex at the start of that curve. It should become visible right about now, and we want to hold the white line just past it before opening up the steering and letting the car run down. Now again into turn 7, another high-speed challenge. We use the service road to open up the corner, and just at the end of it you want to fire in a nice aggressive initial turn, and the reason for that is the track is cambered, so going in early means you'll find a load of grip. Again, we're not focusing on braking late, we're focusing on being smooth and braking as little as we possibly can to keep the minimum speed nice and high. You hold it for as long as you possibly can, but naturally the car will start to come out, and we use the exit curb here in turn 8 to almost catch you trying to avoid the gravel. That's when you know you've got the corner absolutely spot on. You're just squeezing that throttle in and the car is almost fighting you mid to exit. Coming down now into turn 9 and 10, you've almost completed the perfect lap. There's no real overtaking opportunities left, so it's just about closing out the lap as strongly as you possibly can, either pulling away from the cars behind you or, making sure to get a nice clean run to attack. And once again, we can see another blind entry where the track falls away from you. So it's all about being smooth with that brake pedal, and I can't emphasize that enough, to not shock the car when you put it into pitch when you hit the brake, because otherwise where you have these elevation changes, the car is going to feel nervous and you're going to find yourself scratching your head as to where that missing lap time is. We want to hold the apex of the white line and then run out, and as we said at the start of the video, you want to use absolute maximum to there on the FIA curbs. You can see how shaky it is, but we're using it to open up the last corner before we dive in, get to the apex point there, drive it out, DRS open at the line to finish what is a perfect lap in either qualifying or the race, leaving you to attack or defend from the cars behind. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it helps give you some insight, and remember to like and subscribe to School of Send for more in the future.